Hey everyone, Heather here. How's it going today? Today I'm really looking forward to connecting with you all about genetic testing like the 23andMe that takes a look at people's genes. It's a super popular test right now. It's a test that a lot of naturopaths and functional medicine doctors are really promoting and pushing. And while I believe they're super well intentioned and they're missing a key piece here, and the general public is missing a key piece as to why these tests, in my opinion, aren't super accurate and won't get to the root of your health struggles. So I want to go into that a little bit here today and want to give you some other resources to explore that will help you to actually get to the root of your health struggles. So for any of you who are unfamiliar with genetic testing tends to look at the way your genes are expressing themselves. A really common one that many women are familiar with are the BRCA genes. Tends to be, if those test positive, if those show up for you, then the medical community, the thought form out there, the belief that's being pushed on women is that your susceptibility, your increase for accumulating or getting breast cancer increases. This hasn't been my experience. It's been something that the medical community has been really feared women into. Hey, you know, if your mother had breast cancer, if your sister had breast cancer, if you have a family history of breast cancer, you really want to get this genetic testing done. And that's not something I recommend. It tends to instill a lot of fear in women. We can look at Angelina Jolie, for example, who tested positive for the BRCA genes. And to help prevent cancer, she just had her breasts removed at a super young age, threw her into menopause, and really we didn't get to the root of the issue there, which would be looking at her mitochondrial function and looking at her epigenetic signaling and that sort of thing. So when we just look at the genetics, we're missing a whole huge piece of the healing picture that is super important. So and that piece is the mitochondria, the way the mitochondria are functioning. And the reason being is because, just as a kind of a warning, there's going to be some science-y things in this video because this is the way that I personally know how to explain why the genetic testing isn't great and why we really want to focus on the mitochondria, because the genetic testing doesn't look at your mitochondria. It doesn't look at your mitochondrial health or mitochondrial function. And this is key because your mitochondria, a big job that they have is to tunnel or to move electrons across their membrane. So it's kind of like if you're traveling, you get in your car, you're going from point A to point B, and you want to get there in the fastest route. You want your car to be really working efficiently. You know it's not going to break down. You're not going to get, a flat tire. You're not going to run out of gas. Your car's in really good shape to make it from point A to point B. When it comes to your own health and your mitochondrial health, if the electrons aren't in abundance in your body, they cannot get from point A to point B efficiently or effectively. If there's defects in your mitochondria, the electrons cannot tunnel from point A to point B efficiently or effectively. So this is a big deal when it comes to the way your genes express themselves, because there's 5 respiratory proteins inside of your mitochondria. So the electrons have to move across all 5 of those to get across your mitochondria. It's kind of like the electrons have to go through, say you go through 5 exits before you get to your destination. That's how the electrons work. So they move across 5 cytochromes in order to get to their destination, which is making ATP. So these are called cytochromes. The 5 cytochromes are also referred to as respiratory proteins. They're on the inside of your inner mitochondrial membrane. Cytochrome 1 is called NAD or NADH. This signals to your genetics, to your nuclear genome, to your DNA, how it should express itself. So let's say you come in contact with something in your environment that disrupts how that cytochrome 1 is working. So let's say you come in contact with a lot of non-native blue light in your environment. And then you have a lot of, let's just say, air pollution, and maybe you have heavy metals in your mouth. Well, the signal that's going to go from your mitochondria to your nuclear genome, which is what these 23andMe tests test. They test the nuclear genome. The signal that goes from the mitochondria to the nuclear genome is going to be altered. So say when you're exposed to those sort of toxins and environmental pollutants, the signal sent from your mitochondria to your DNA is going to turn on disease-promoting genes. It's going to turn on genes that prevent you from being a good methylator or a good detoxifier. So what these 23andMe tests do is they just look at the genes, they don't look at the mitochondria. If you want to fix how your genes are expressing themselves, you need to fix how your mitochondria are functioning, because particularly cytochrome 1 and cytochrome 4, which is called CCO or cytochrome C oxidase, determines how your epigenetic signaling is turned on in the nuclear genome. The 23andMe test skips over the mitochondria and just looks at your genes. This is not helpful. So I just mentioned a subject that I'm going to talk a little bit about here today, which is methylation. And for those of you who aren't familiar with methylation, just in really simple terms, people are often referred to, based on their genetic test results, as a good methylator or a poor methylator. A good methylator is someone who is able to detox things efficiently and effectively, and they don't have this buildup of, say, heavy metals and toxins in their liver and in their body. Those things are able to move through really efficiently and effectively. Whereas a poor methylator, these individuals have issues with their detoxification pathways. And so this sets them up for, being unable to detox mercury or other heavy metals or any pollutants. Basically any toxin is a real issue for them and triggers anything physical symptoms in the body, maybe even emotional symptoms like anxiety or depression, and things like fatigue, just feeling like poor sleep, feeling unrested, headaches, histamine responses. Okay, these are some examples of some side effects that may be present on a regular basis if you're having issues with your methylation pathways. So what we're missing here with the 23andMe testing is that, okay, say the results come back, they show, oh, you have the MTHFR gene, and meaning you're a poor methylator, you can't detox anything. Well, let's look at what you need to be a good methylator, not just avoid tuna because there might be a little bit of mercury in it and then you'll have detox symptoms, or avoid coffee because then it'll trigger detox symptoms. This isn't getting to the root of the problem. We need to find out why you're a poor methylator, and the reason why people are poor methylators is because they don't have enough sulfur in their body. Their proteins are not becoming sulfated. And so the real issue with the methylation problem, the MTHFR genes, or any SNPs really that are present that are potentially dangerous or hazardous to your health that show up on their test, basically the more of those you have, it just is saying that you're really deficient in sulfur and you're unable to sulfate your proteins. In order for you to be able to detox, in order for you to be a good methylator, in order for your methionine cycle to be working efficiently and effectively, your proteins need to be sulfated. So this is why I don't really like or prefer the 23andMe testing and other genetic testings out there, because they're just looking at, you're just getting a half truth. You're not getting the full story here. Let's talk about this sulfur process, this sulfation process, and what you need to actually be a good methylator, to actually rectify your detoxification. It's never about avoiding certain foods. While that may be helpful in the process while you're working on improving your SNPs and your genetic expression, it's not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is, okay, how do we get your proteins to be sulfated? So in order to really get to the root of this, we need to look at the gut microbiome. And this is because the gut microbiome has huge roles, plays a huge role in the way your proteins become sulfated. Your skin, which is often, it's just a reflection of your gut as well, is also an area that is an important part of the sulfation process. So, let's take a look at this a little bit, and to do so we need to start with the story of hydrogen, and I'll keep this really basic and simple, but I just want to give you a little bit of a background here as to why this is important and how this is going to help you improve your sulfation pathways. So we need to look at hydrogen first, because hydrogen in your gut particularly, you produce about 1 liter of hydrogen a day, or you're supposed to anyway. A healthy individual is supposed to produce at least around 1 liter of hydrogen a day. And the amount of hydrogen that you're able to make in your gut microbiome, okay, this is a key role that your gut microbiome plays. And a lot of people are like, Heather, I'm coming to you for a hurt knee, or I'm coming for you because I have headaches, or I'm coming to you because I have cancer, or I'm coming to you because I have a retinal detachment. Why do you want to do stool testing with me? And I do stool testing with every single person I work with for this reason that I'm going to tell you as we get into this here, because the amount of hydrogen you make determines how much sulfur you make in your gut. The amount of sulfur you have in your body determines your ability to detox and methylate properly. Now, let's start with hydrogen, because this is, okay, we're getting to the root of this. We're not just going to say avoid coffee, avoid tuna, and this sort of thing. Let's get to the root of this a little bit. So let's look at how the first step, hydrogen. Your gut microbiome produces about 1 liter of hydrogen a day, and what is this production dependent on? Light. So the amount and the type of light that you interact with determines how much hydrogen your gut microbiome produces. And how does your gut microbiome get the signals as to how much hydrogen to produce via light? It's through your eyes, and it's through your skin. And then for those of you who are members of my Sunlight RX community, or the Quantum Level Healing Patreon page, you all know the Sunlight RX, and you all know how I talk about how to utilize the sun to improve your healing capabilities and your healing potential and your mitochondrial health. This is a huge reason why I so frequently post, you need to learn how to utilize the certain spectrums of sunlight to heal your mitochondria. I don't often go into the sciencey details as to why, because it's not where most people are at. Most people just want to know, tell me what to do to get better. And so, I outline it for them. But in this video, I'm going to get a little deeper than that, because I think some of you are ready to hear this in a deeper way. So the amount of light that you interact with, sunlight, we're talking about in certain spectrums, okay? I'm not talking about it's 2 p.m., you're on your lunch break and you haven't been in the sun all day and you're going to go out and get in the sun. That is not how to utilize sunlight to improve your mitochondrial health or healing capabilities. You can go through the Sunlight RX and you can learn how to do this and learn how to incorporate hybrid tanning into your daily lifestyle to improve your sulfation abilities, your detoxification pathways, your methylation capabilities. And just by doing this, you do this for, let's say, 6 months, especially in strong solar light like summer light or equatorial sunlight. You go back and do that genetic testing, and I can guarantee if you do the Sunlight RX properly, and then if you even incorporate my dietary stuff in, you're going to see drastic changes begin to happen in your health. So, to make a long story short, the amount of hydrogen your gut is able to produce is highly dependent on the light you're exposed to on a daily basis. What type of light are you interacting with? Are you interacting with sunlight? Are you interacting mostly with non-native blue light from your computer, from a TV, from a device, from your cell phone? Every time you look at a cell phone, every time you look at a screen, if you don't have those screens on red mode, or if you don't have your, the Iris program that I highly recommend to everyone, download it on your computer and in sleep mode, every time you look at it, you're getting a dose of blue light. That signal goes from your eyes, from your skin, into your blood vessels, to your gut, and to the rest of your body. But the gut is a huge place where this communication interacts, as well as your brain, your blood as well, and it sends this signaling. And if you're getting too much blue light, non-native blue light, non-native meaning not from the sun, because there's certain times of the day when blue light is present in the sun. It's called native blue light, okay? These are native EMFs. These are the type of EMFs we want. We want native EMFs from the sunlight. We do not want non-native EMFs like blue light, like all the Wi-Fi, like all your Bluetooth stuff. All of that, all of those things are alien frequencies, and they're going to disrupt the way that you produce, the amount of hydrogen you produce in your gut microbiome, among many, many other things. So this is really a huge process. This is a huge first step with hydrogen, because the amount of hydrogen that you have in your gut and that you produce in your gut is connected to the amount of sulfur, which we're talking about sulfur today as a key thing to your key aspect to your methylation and detoxification capabilities. So the amount of hydrogen you have is tied to the amount of sulfur that you have in the gut, and there's something called hydrogen sulfide that you make in your gut as well. So the hydrogen you have makes something called hydrogen sulfide in your gut. Okay, and why is this important? Why does this matter, Heather? Why are you telling me about hydrogen sulfide and all these sciencey things that are made in the gut? Well, the hydrogen sulfide that's in your gut is a key communicator to your mitochondria, specifically CCO, or cytochrome C oxidase, which is cytochrome 4 that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. And okay, we're talking about a little science here. What do I recommend? Watch this video several times. Just put it on and listen to the audio, and you'll start to really connect the dots here, and you'll start to get this, and the science will start to make sense. And if you're a Patreon member of mine, or if you're a Quantum Level Healing member of mine, you'll know that many of these themes start to repeat, so it won't sound so out there and foreign when you start to get the language down. So if you're feeling frustrated with that, I would encourage you to listen through this and listen again until you really start connecting the dots. That's exactly what I did when I was first starting to learn this stuff. You don't have to be a medical student to get this stuff down. You just have to have a desire to want to learn it, and to be open to learning new things in new ways. And so that's just a recommendation I give for any of you who are maybe feeling frustrated at this point with some of the science stuff. So hydrogen sulfide interacts with your mitochondria. Now, we talked about the electrons moving from point A to point B along your mitochondria in the beginning of the video. And something that happens in cancer, particularly, and other mitochondrial diseases, cancer is not just a metabolic disorder. I know many people focus on cancer as a metabolic disease. Yeah, there's really some issues with the metabolism going on many levels when it comes to cancer, but there's huge issues with the mitochondria. Hydrogen sulfide slows down the rate at which electrons move across your mitochondria, and they get from point A to point B much slower. When this slows down, your body's able to heal. You're able to perform the two key regeneration programs in your body, which is autophagy and apoptosis. Anybody with cancer likely knows that their ability to perform autophagy and apoptosis is significantly diminished when there's any type of cancer involved. People who have cancer, the electrons move from point A to point B so fast that no healing can occur. You can't sleep at night. You can't achieve apoptosis. Autophagy, which is protein or cell recycling, can't happen, so you're living off of old cells every day, and you feel like crap. You're tired, you can't sleep, you don't have any energy. This is because, one reason is because the electrons are not moving, they're moving across your mitochondria far too fast, much too fast for any healing to be done. It's like if you were traveling to point A to point B and you were on a scenic route and you went 200 miles an hour and you couldn't see any of the scenery around you. You couldn't take anything in, okay? So a key thing with the hydrogen sulfide is it slows down the rate of your electron chain transport, okay? And this is huge in terms of healing. And when you do this, you're able to detox more efficiently, you're able to methylate more effectively, and I'll get into that here in just a few. But know that in order for this electron chain transport to actually slow down, you need to change the light you're interacting with. Please, if you're out there, I've made the Sunlight RX as a super affordable. You can literally do it for $12 a month, and I post videos like this every 1 to 2 weeks to help keep people motivated, give new insight about how to use the sun to help heal your mitochondria. It's literally an incredibly small investment to help you heal your mitochondria, and hopefully this video is going to teach you a little bit more about why that's so important and why avoiding foods and beverages that show up on your SNPs is just not getting to the root of the issue. So in order to slow that electron chain transport down, getting those electrons from point A to point B, you need to change the light you're interacting with. So if you're a tech person, if you're on your phone all day, if you're on the computer all day, if you're simply in a building surrounded by LED lights and fluorescent lights, these things will cause cytochrome 5, which is called ATPase, okay, to not spin efficiently. It will, when your ATPase isn't spinning efficiently, you have no energy, you can't sleep, you can't heal, you can't detox. So why is sunlight such a big deal? One, there's a lot, you cannot get more electrons in the world at this time from any other source than sunlight. Sunlight is the biggest form of electrons. So when people say, Heather, yeah, but I need to get a diet that really helps me heal. This is why, for me, diet's like number 4 or 5 on the list of healing, because the electron availability in food is low. Now, I don't want you to eat sugar and carbohydrates and all this sort of stuff. But what I want you to first focus on is sunlight as your primary, because it's so rich in electrons, and all of sunlight contains 42% red light all day, all year round. So the amount of red light that you are exposed to determines how efficient your ATPase spins. And the amount of hydrogen you make in your gut from sunlight is a huge determining factor as to how efficient that ATPase spins. And we want your ATPase to spin at 100% efficiency so you can have a lot of energy, so you can have a strong redox potential, meaning you're a healing machine. When your redox is high, you can eat things like a tuna that has a little bit of mercury in it. Tuna is a really healthy food. We're talking fresh tuna. If you're, someone who's a poor methylator and you're told to eat tuna, we're not getting to the root of the issue. Because I want you to be able to eat really nutrient dense foods that have a lot of electrons in it, and when you're a poor methylator, some of these foods can maybe trigger you. So producing more hydrogen in your gut, you need that 1 liter a day. And then when you do that, you're able to make hydrogen sulfide in your gut, okay? When you're able to do that, you're able to slow down electron chain transport in your mitochondria. The electrons that are moving across your mitochondria from point A to point B slow down, okay? You're out of the car and you're walking now. You're able to take in the scenery. You're able to stop and take pictures. You're able to, there's so much healing, there's so much input that you get to download during that experience. Same thing when you slow down electron chain transport. You're able to do autophagy, you're able to do apoptosis, your cells are able to regenerate, and cytochrome 5, which is the last cytochrome at the end of your mitochondria, spins at 100% efficiency, and this is key for you to be a healthy being. So, what influences all of that? If you're just like, Heather, forget all this science, tell me what to do, follow the Sunlight RX, and you know, this will solve the issues. You don't have to get into the science, you don't have to understand much. Just go to my Patreon page or my quantumlevelhealing.com page, site, and you'll be able to do the Sunlight RX and just incorporate it in a really easy way. You don't have to worry about the science if that's not where you're at. Some people are like, I'm way overloaded with all this healing and all this information. Just tell me what to do. Do the Sunlight RX, follow it step by step, and you'll achieve all of these things. Okay, so sunlight, you're hearing now, is the key factor for how your gut microbiome functions, and you can learn more about that. You can go to ancestraldigestion.com. That's my digestion site. Talks all about how light influences and sculpts the gut microbiome, how to do that, why it's important. It's a huge missing link out there in the world today because research is not focusing on light in the gut microbiome. And we know that the light that hits our eyes and skin is the biggest determining factor for your mitochondrial health and the health of your gut microbiome. So, when you're not interacting with the right light, you develop over time. So say you've been working a job where you've been in poor light for a long time. You've been working a job where you have strong non-native EMF exposure. You've been working a job where you're on a computer all day, or you're constantly looking at your cell phone, or it's not uncommon today that you're working in a building that has an antenna on it or it has a cell phone tower on it. We're seeing that people who live in areas with close cell phone tower proximity or antenna proximity, they're not doing so well in the healing department. We can look at Kate Spade as an example. They put microwave antennas on her building, and what happened was her depression got really intense. She ended up committing suicide. Suicide is now the #1 cause of death. I think the range is like in 14 or 16 to 24 or 25-year-olds. When I was young, the #1 cause of death in that time, that age group, was accidents, mostly car accidents from, drunk driving or just, kids are just learning how to drive. They can't drive that well. So that was the #1 cause of death. Today, the #1 cause of death in that age group is suicide. And it's largely due to our overexposure to non-native blue light because our mitochondria isn't functioning well. We're not getting in the sunlight. When we get in certain spectrums of sunlight, you produce dopamine, you produce melatonin. Your melatonin recycles. You produce T3 through your eye. Okay, all this is outlined on the Sunlight RX. So this is really key. So the amount of light that you're exposed to determines how much hydrogen is made in your gut, how much hydrogen sulfide is made in your gut, and how well you're able to regenerate because of the rate at which your electrons travel across your inner mitochondrial membrane. The very last thing that I want to mention here is a key to how you sulfate things, and that is found in vitamin B2. Now, I'm going to talk about this just briefly, but it doesn't mean to go out and buy a vitamin B2 supplement, because you're not going to have any of the light stimulus that you need to produce and maintain your vitamin B2 or riboflavin levels. Vitamin B2 is primarily found where? In the gut microbiome. Vitamin B2 is key to, it's a key cofactor in all of the sulfation processes in your body. So if your B2 is low, you're not going to be able to sulfate your proteins, and you're not going to be a good detoxifier, and you're not going to be a good methylator. So what will happen in that case? Your SNPs will show up. I can't detox, I can't methylate, I have MTHFR, and so here's a list of foods to avoid. That's their approach. Okay, we're getting a little bit, we're diving deeper here. I like to go deep, so we're getting deeper into this stuff here. So vitamin B2, riboflavin, is a blue light chromophore. What does that mean? It basically means it detects blue light. So if you have too much non-native blue light from EMFs, from non-native EMFs, from your devices, from tech, you're in a computer all day, you're on fluorescent lights all day, you work under LED lights all day, guess what? That vitamin B2 in your gut will become significantly depleted, and you won't be able to sulfate your proteins, and you will be a poor methylator, and you won't be able to detox. Now we're getting to the root of the issues here. What will help to remedy this issue? It sounds so simple. Heather, tell me something really, let's get a little bit more in depth than sunlight. I'm telling you, the answer is sunlight. From everything we know now, the key here is learning how to utilize certain spectrums of sunlight, to learn how to incorporate hybrid tanning into your daily life, to help produce hydrogen, to help produce hydrogen sulfide, to help support B2 production, so that you can sulfate your proteins, so that you can detox and methylate. It's really that simple. This is why the 23andMe test, anyone I work with, they send it to me. I understand they're super well intentioned, that their doctors really promoted the test and put a lot of energy and emphasis on it. And in my experience, it's just not helpful. So what is helpful is learning how to utilize sunlight to help support your sulfating your proteins and the detoxification pathways in your liver. Here are some things that need to be sulfated in your body for you to be a healthy person, just to end with here. So your platelets. People come to me and they say, Heather, my platelets are low. What does this tell me immediately? That immediately tells me you're a poor methylator, you can't detox because you're not getting in enough, your proteins aren't sulfated because you're blue light toxic and you're not getting enough sunlight. That tells me so much. If your platelets are low. People who have your white blood cells also are sulfated. People who come to me, hey, Heather, my white blood cell count is low. What's going on here? What can I do about this? Also tells me you are not sulfating your proteins and you're not detoxing properly. You have a sunlight deficiency and a non-native blue light toxicity. These things are really easy to overcome. If you think about our ancient ancestors, they lived in sunlight, they were outside, they lived outdoor lives. We didn't start to live indoor lives until about 1870, I want to say 9, somewhere in the 1870s, 76 or 79, Thomas Edison invented the incandescent light bulb. Boom, we had artificial light at night. Since then, we have not had mitochondrial diseases occur until that time, and particularly in the just booming chronic effect that we're having today. I mean, we are really in a health crisis here. And our health crisis, if we want to boil it down to why it's occurring, is because we live too much of our lives indoor, not enough of our lives outdoors. This is why am I outside doing this video, because I know that being inside, it contributes to me not being well. and I want to be well, and I want you to be well. So I would encourage you all to possibly listen to this video several times until the bells and whistles start to click. And I would encourage you all to join the Sunlight RX community, either on Patreon or on my Quantum Level Healing site. You get a little bit more on the Quantum Level Healing site, but depending on when you watch this video, that site isn't going to be launched till about August or September 2019. So those are some ways you can start to improve your SNPs. Anything that tested not so great on your 23andMe test or on any genetic test you did, you need to learn how to utilize sunlight. And I'm not just talking going out in the middle of the day or once or twice a day for 5 minutes. It's like if you're sick, you learn how to utilize sunlight to help restore all these processes I talked about today. So this video was a little bit dense, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. If you have questions, please feel free to post below. You're welcome to go to that Patreon site, patreon.com/Quantum Level Healing. Join the Sunlight RX. You can get started on healing your SNPs, your genetics, your mitochondria as soon as the next sunrise by learning that Sunlight RX as soon as you sign up, or going over to the quantumlevelhealing.com site. And as I mentioned, for those of you who are like, oh wow, I think I need to learn more about the gut and its connection to light, because this is a huge missing piece in the gastroenterology models today and treatments today. Many gut disorders are simply not being addressed from the root because we're not incorporating light, we're not incorporating how to get gut pathogens out. I know that's a little bit of an aside, but we talked a lot about the gut microbiome today, and most people, there's so much we don't know about the gut microbiome, and this is one huge thing. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just meant to digest our food. Well, actually, you all know now more than pretty much 99% of gastroenterologists, naturopaths, functional medicine doctors, that the gut microbiome is key to how you sulfate your proteins and is key to how your methylation pathways work and how you detox. So I just also want to mention here, right as I'm ending, that your body also is able to sulfate things like your platelets, your white blood cells. I didn't mention vitamin D also needs to be sulfated. Cholesterol also needs to be sulfated for these molecules to work optimally in your body. This is why just taking a vitamin D supplement, you get no sulfation from the sun. That's why, you know, unless you're working with me and your vitamin D is really low and we weave in how to use a vitamin D supplement in conjunction with sunlight for a short period of time of that supplementation to improve your vitamin D levels. Do not take a vitamin D supplement, or most other supplements for that matter, if you're not utilizing the Sunlight RX, because it's going to be really misleading and confusing to your body, because it needs the photonic signals from the sun mostly to sulfate things so you can detox, so you can methylate, so your methionine cycle is working at 100% efficiency, so your ATPase is spinning at 100% efficiency. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Again, watch it over and over if you need to really get some things to click here. If you have questions, post below. Reach out to me at any of my emails, which you can find on those websites. And thanks so much for this question on the keto cancer solution. It is such a good question. It's such a big topic. The genetics is such a confusing area right now, not just for the general public and the client and the patient, but the practitioner doesn't understand this as well. Most of them, they haven't dug into this science yet. And this is really key to understand how your genes are actually expressing themselves and working, and how to rectify them from a root place. See you next time.